Starting late like our Kentucky Wildcats. Sources say it's here. What an absolute
That is not our
cluster.
intro. That is
What
nowhere
an
near how we
absolute
open the
cluster
show.
of a 48 hours. What a cluster of a 9-day period. But hey, it's just matching the vibe of the current culture of Kentucky basketball. I'm your host, Jack Pilgrim of Kentucky Sports Radio. Very excited, or whatever feeling I have right now, to be joined by Shawn Smith of Frederick Douglass Basketball. How are you doing, buddy?
I've been better. I've
You
been a
are
lot
telling
better.
me.
You went to New York without me, but you got the same result. So
That is indeed true. But we are brought to you by our friends at LG&E and KU. So thank you for all they do. Appreciate them, and just lots of stuff, lots of good stuff. But everything good with them, but nothing good right now going on with Kentucky basketball. Coming off just yet another disastrous performance in New York City. Whatever it is we got to do to just not go back to Madison Square Garden, I'm all the way in, because this is back-to-back just disastrous performances. I don't know how. I don't know why. But Shawn, I'm almost more frustrated about everything else and the outside noise just surrounding the program right now, just as much as I am the on-court product and how bad things look in the 83-66 loss to Michigan State, while also just kind of factoring in that this is the second performance against a team with a pulse this season, and failed again. Did the exact same thing a week before against Louisville. Same kind of script where they tried to kind of sort of fight, but it was never really close from basically the 12-minute mark of either game on. It was trying to find ways to survive and not drown, and they ultimately drowned and died. So how are you feeling? Because we're going to have a lot of takes to get off our chest. We got to really just turn this into a big-time therapy session.
I mean, you looked at these two games, right? And I kept saying that I wanted to see them against the good competition on their schedule, and now the sample size is still small because it's just a couple of weeks, but it's two games, and after they lost the Louisville game, we kind of circled this one and said, okay, this is a must-win game. And not just for resume purposes, but I thought for morale, not just within the team, but around the fan base and their performance. Had it been competitive and you lose by one or two or down the stretch and you don't make a shot to win it, but to just not really even compete, right? Like to not compete at all for a roster that is down some people we know, and that contributes to some issues at times. But I still think if Jalen Lowe had played, that this may have still been the result. That maybe it's just a few points here and there, but Kentucky's issues are beyond not having Jalen Lowe at point guard. Kentucky's issues are beyond not having Jaden Quaintance available right now. Like the issues that you're seeing, I'm just not seeing much fight from guys that I anticipated to see fight from. And you've got a confused head coach. That's the way that I would put it. And I'm not going to crush things, but he looks lost right now. He looks like he's searching for answers that he doesn't know where to find them. And he just looks defeated. And that's the concerning part for me, is because I'm so used to seeing Mark Pope be this upbeat, energetic guy. And right now, I think the look he had on his face walking into MSG, when you go back and watch it, you're like, we probably should have seen this coming, because he looked defeated before the game even started. It wasn't a look on his face that locked in. It was kind of that, like it had been a long week and a long few days, and maybe he saw that coming.
I want to start the show by making it clear that I believe in this team. I do think that this team can still go to a Final Four. I like the pieces. I think that there is still something there to be very, very excited about. I still think Mark Pope is by far the best option to be the head coach at Kentucky. Anything that we say this point forward, it's not a reflection of him being on the hot seat. He's not going to get fired. His job is not in jeopardy. I just, in this extremist world where everything is, Mark Pope kind of talked about it today at his press conference, where it's hot and cold. There's never warm. There's never it's black and white. He's either the best person for the job or the worst person for the job and needs to be fired. There's no in between. We're in that in between stage, and we needed to live in this gray area for a minute because it's going to get uncomfortable. But it has nothing to do with, like, we can have a nuanced conversation where things are going to be said that it's going to be difficult, and we're going to have to work through some of those things while still being confident in the future of the program under its current leader. So, I think this last 9 days has been an absolute disaster for Mark Pope. I think he has failed at every single stop. I think that he was totally outclassed and outcoached against Louisville. I think he handled the press conference unbelievably poorly after the fact. I don't think that he said the right things in the immediate aftermath. I think the Thursday press conference 2 days later was horrific and started something that did not need to happen and was totally avoidable. And for some reason, he continued to shoot himself in the foot with that. And I'm really confused with the thinking and the messaging behind that. That's going to be obviously a big talking point, unfortunately, as much as I've wanted to move on from that stupid game since last Tuesday at 10 p.m. The reason why we still have to talk about it is because Mark Pope kept talking about it, not answering the question and just shutting it down when he had the chance to. So that part's been frustrating. The aftermath of the Eastern Illinois game, another chance to shut down some of the nonsense. He decides to throw Taylor Swift comparisons out there, and that was just wild and just totally confusing. I'm just still baffled by that. And then we get whatever that was on Tuesday against Michigan State, where you went up against a team that had an identity and had carved out roles and took pride in those roles. Everybody, you knew exactly what they brought to the table on the roster, 1 through 5 and throughout the bench. Very well coached team, great game plan. Yes, their shooting was an outlier, and that's, you kind of have to live with some of that, but not all the shots were contested, and you got to live with the fact that Kentucky is pretty poor defensively right now, while also on the other side having no identity whatsoever, no offensive identity. Their defensive execution is a disaster. They're just the rotations and the substitution patterns. Just, there is nothing right there that makes you feel confident in this current product of Kentucky basketball, or confidence being conveyed by Mark Pope to make you feel like he has any answers to fix any of them. So we're at a point where we gotta figure out what the deal is. We gotta figure out who's going to be leading the charge. Like, is this a Jalen Lowe thing? Mark Pope talked about it in passing, about that Jalen is, testing it and seeing how his shoulder responds, with the intention of maybe not just calling it a season and undergoing the season-ending surgery, which I think is good news in general. That was a welcomed answer today, a very few welcomed answers today, but just a lot to not like from a PR perspective in general, Shawn. And like, I feel like that's where we gotta start. How have you taken kind of just this 9-day journey, starting from the Louisville post game and through today's press conference, essentially?
I think it's probably the first real storm that Mark Pope has faced as the head coach of Kentucky. And what I mean by storm is, last year I think it was a throwaway year, right? Like, you found so much positivity in what they were doing. You were hopeful for the future. You were looking at one point, we were looking at year 3 being that roster that we were expecting to probably break through and do something special. But then you see what he put together and was confident in it, and how he spoke about it in the preseason. So then it gets us fired up about it, gets the fan base fired up. But even after the Purdue game, the exhibition, like, we're on here breaking down our predictions for the season, and Kentucky has been anything but what we expected them to be. When it comes to Pope, it's just so out of character for what we've seen for 18 months, right? Like, it's just the interview with Goodman is the one that I go back to and look, that he just looked like he had no answer for what. And I get it. It's a tough spot to be in. You lost your rival a week ago. You play even worse than what you did in that game against Michigan State. You didn't really have much fight in a building that you had no fight in a year ago. on the biggest of stages in college basketball outside of the Final Four and then the NCAA tournament, and your team didn't show up to compete. And guys aren't competing at their highest level possible. Guys that have been in this program and things. So I sense the frustration. I understand. I do think that there are ways to fix this, and I think that Pope will sit down at the table and roll up his sleeves and get it right to some point. But he has lost some PR battles in the last couple of weeks, and he said some things that, like, I don't think that everything needs to be made public. Of whatever happens and whatever is going on, you played poorly, it is what it is, you go back to work and you try to fix it. Now, I will also say when Cal was here, there were times that I wish he would have told us a little more instead of dodging things. So there's a line between not telling us and then saying stuff, because what it did, Jack, is it just led to so much speculation of what's really going on, right? Like, is it of what's going on with the team? What was it that happened before the Louisville game? What's happened between Louisville and Michigan State? What's happening now? Like, it just created a firestorm of emotions. And then you've got Pope, who just looks dazed right now. He looks like he just got up off the mat and is about to go back down again. So he's just so infectious with his personality that when it's great, you're feeding off of it. But at the same time, like, when I see him down, it tells me he cares deeply about this. And I think he's probably losing sleep over it currently. I just need a little bit more positivity to believe that this thing can get right. And I'm not saying he's saying that it can't. It's just his body language has been so defeated the last few days. And after that game the other night, he's disappointed that his team didn't play well, but you just got to figure it out, man. And I think they will. I think there's places where you start, but it is concerning that the overall morale is not just with the fan base. It's the head coach and everybody just kind of just looks deflated right now.
Well, the thing is, you look at this team and you just see, the togetherness that we loved about last year's group and how early they felt close is just not the case. And Pope talked about it today. Not every team is built that way. They're not always going to come together as quickly. There's so many personalities, so many new additions, whatever. But the frustrating part of all of this is that when you ask Otega Owe at the podium in New York City, hey, something is not clicking for you right now as the face of this program. What is that? And his response is, well, my energy and my effort isn't where it needs to be. It's not always humming at 100%. And, I think once I get that figured out, I think everything else is going to fall into place. It's like, you're the SEC preseason player of the year, dude. Like, the team hums when you hum. You are the catalyst for a lot of that. And Mark Pope had a comment today. He was asked about, Jalen Lowe's absence and wondering, like, hey, do you feel like there's a leadership problem that, your starting point guard isn't there? Do you feel like, you're missing a go-to clear-cut leader? And Mark said that he didn't think there were any clear-cut leaders on this team and thought that it was going to be a by-committee approach. And that was kind of like the team captain of the 1996 championship team doesn't see a team that doesn't see the value in leadership and having a captain, having a go-to voice to lean on, and it being a guy like Otega who has been there and done that, and having him kind of be the centerpiece of a lot of the team's, the effort and the intensity and the approach and the edge that this team's clearly missing. How is any of this possible? How is it when we're talking about Brandon Garrison, who, woof, just in terms of on-court play, but when Pope is talking about the progress that he's made and how he's the second most efficient offensive player on the team right now, and however that he came up with those numbers, whatever, but saying again with him that, he didn't think that, he's not playing with the right energy and that the energy is off. He's a junior. He's your second year player in your program. How is it that the two upperclassmen that you have are kind of failing you in that regard? I just don't get it, man. They're just, those things are mind-boggling to me. But go for it.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry, I thought you were done.
I'm gonna go back to the other PR stuff. So go for it.
I mean, Oweh questioning his energy, like there's ways that you can say, I got to be better and things, but I mean, if he's not playing hard enough, and I don't think he is. Like, I mean, when you turn on the tape, there are some defensive mistakes, right? Like when I went back and watched the game and I broke it down and I looked at it, sure, Michigan State made some tough shots. There were also shots that Kentucky just had poor rotations, poor closeouts. Those things that I talked about after the Nichols game when they were still – the numbers were showing up in their favor, but I said the habits are not. Like, if the numbers are matching the habits, then I can say, okay, Kentucky's leaning into being a good defensive team. But I saw too many things that I thought was going to hurt them when they played good teams, and we've seen that now twice. And there were poor closeouts early in the game, just not having hands, not closing out aggressively. Some of it may be scout because maybe you don't want to do a full close, but then after a guy's hit one or two or whatever, or they're getting in rhythm looks, you got to do something. You got to play with some energy. I thought and it's not just Oweh, it's across the board with some plays. But just overall, I just don't think the fight has been there. It's been there in spurts, but then again, too, this isn't a roster to me now that I've seen it enough. This isn't a team that should play 12 guys or however many he wants to play. Like, this thing needs to be trimmed down. There is a fine line between who should play and who should not play. And it's getting to that point now where it needs to be – I get it. Jalen Lowe being out thins it down some. But they have to get this thing keyed in. I kept talking about it in the preseason. What was my biggest concern? You can have too many. You can play too many guys. There's too much lineup mixing going on. And it's happening at points in the game where the thing flips and the other team's going on a run. It's because you're not developing an identity, not just an identity with your team, an identity rotation-wise, and identity with individuals. And I think Kentucky's issues are lack of identity individually and collectively. You're not going to get the collective identity until individuals are sorted out. Like, I love him, but Mo Diabate should not be taking the number of three-point attempts that he is. There was an action where Kentucky got a roll to the rim, and he was the replaced guy lifting behind, and the ball goes to him. That's not who I want there, lifting out of that shot. Taking some threes with still plenty of time on the shot clock. Like, there's a lot of things that are happening that I just think are bad basketball, and at times it comes off that Kentucky maybe poorly planning some things, poorly executing some things, but I think a lot of it goes with lineup combinations and some guys playing together. And Ortega struggles too, Jack. How much was last year's system just beneficial to Ortega with the shooters that they had, that he could get downhill and get into some
definitely
seams?
A part for sure.
And how much of it now is that when he tries to get downhill, it's a defender that's sagging off Mo Diabate, or it's someone else that's not, attached to a three-point threat like a Kobe Bryant. And I know we talked about how the athleticism and all that stuff could improve what they were doing significantly. But I think that what's happened is you still got to get acclimated to those new guys that are on the floor with you. And I think there's a little bit of a learning curve there with getting adjusted to it. And I think Kentucky's going through the growing pains of it now against some really good basketball teams.
They're also just not running anything. That part's driving me crazy, because it goes back to the first Jalen Lowe injury. We heard Mark Pope talk about how they built the entire offense around Jalen, and they're like, hey, he said at the time, like, hey, we're kind of struggling with an identity because everything was built around him. He was the offense, and we didn't really have a backup plan. Like, we are now kind of creating on the fly. We're building a post Lowe offense. And at the time I heard that and I was like, I mean, no backup plan. And this is, Jalen Lowe was kind of in and out, had a couple of, injury bug bites over the course of the summer and early fall, where it wasn't like he didn't have perfect attendance at practice to justify not having a backup plan. So to hear that the first time around, and then when Jalen re-injures it, and then just seeing the offense this looks like a John Calipari dribble drive, horns, floppy action offense. How? Like, you got hired at Kentucky because of the creativity and just the imagination that you had in this read and react, just whirlwind that defenses had no answer for. But we're seeing pull up threes 4 seconds into the shot clock. We're seeing pull up mid range jumper, like things that there's no rhyme or reason to any of it. And you wonder, like, was really Jalen Lowe the glue that held this entire system together? Like, come on, man. Like, it's bad. Give credit to Michigan State, especially because they are a cohesive, experienced group that knows exactly what they're trying to accomplish every single time down the floor on every single defensive possession. They're for Kentucky's identity crisis struggles right now. Michigan State was the worst possible team to go up against to expose a lot of that, if that makes sense, Sean. And I think that's something to keep in mind as we, they expose Kentucky's flaws probably in the worst way out of any team that possibly could.
They did. And with some of, I know Pope saying about BG being efficient offensively, and I'm going to try not to go all in on some things, but like the play there early in the first half with 16 and a half to go was one of the worst basketball clips I've ever seen in my life, of not defending a hook shot.
That's D3 stuff. Like that was a joke.
Yeah. It's not even D3. It might be sitting on the couch.
Middle school basketball.
Going out in the driveway and not knowing what you're doing. Like that's what that was. It didn't look good at all. And but you're going to be efficient. You're going to grade out well when you're 13 to 17 on the year and you've only missed 1 3, right? Like that's going to grade well. You've got 9 assists to 5 turnovers. But like, what impactful plays are you making for this team right now? And I don't see a whole lot from him. I think Malachi has outplayed him to this point. I don't know what that's going to mean, but Pope saying those things tells me that I think Pope's defending the decision to continue going how he is with it. But at some point, Jack, like the tough decisions are going to have to be made. And I'm not saying I'm ready to just pull him out of the rotation entirely, but I do think he's got to give him more. I think he's got to give him a lot more. And right now, not giving a whole lot. And I'm not – at some point, analytics, I get it. You lean on them, but the eye test at times has just not been good. And
I do want to give – I want to
– numbers are going to go the other direction at some point.
And I want to give Pope credit because what else is he going to say? He has to defend his guy. He can't throw BG under the bus. It was coach speak. All of it was coach speak. There is no way you can actually evaluate the film, dissect it. There was a 7-minute low light tape from a 40-minute basketball game that was shared on Twitter and went viral. We're Kentucky basketball, man. Like, we shouldn't have a 7-minute low light tape of any game, let alone one at Madison Square Garden against a top 20 opponent coming off an in-state rivalry loss. That's just unacceptable. We can't be at that point in this program. But Pope had to say that about BG. But behind the scenes, I am here to tell you, he has no choice but to make some really, really difficult calls, because if he doesn't, if he wants to roll with this kind of nice guy shtick and follow through on the promises of, well, here's, everybody's going to have a role, all 13 guys on the roster, we're going to find a way to make sure everybody stays happy. It's physically impossible. It's not going to happen. Tough calls have to be made. And what you don't want to happen is piss off the wrong guys. The guys that you need, the Malachi Morenos, the Jaden Quaintances, the future long-term plan guys. Like, at best, Brandon Garrison is a stopgap for the next generation. Like, you brought him back because there were other schools that were pushing privately behind the scenes to steal him away. Kentucky made that decision to bring him back to Kentucky as the insurance policy for Jaden Quaintance as he deals with his stuff. You can't mistake the long-term play here when Jaden comes back, you have to push your chips in on the right call, the guys that are actually producing and playing efficient basketball, and that you can build around both now and later. And Brandon doesn't fit either of those things. Malachi is the future. Jaden Quaintance is the now. That's gonna be that's gonna have to be your front court rotation. Build around, see what you have in Andrea Jelovic. Is it a spacing and shooting thing to unlock the best version of Otega Oweh? And if that's the case, you better put him next to Andrea Jelovic. You better put him next to Cam Williams. You got to put him next to Jasper Johnson, the shot makers. We can't. This is not working. We have to. The next 2 games do not matter. We don't need to say a single word about Loyola Maryland or what the scout looks like. Mark Pope's version of the scout of Loyola Maryland was saying that there was a player that played well on the roster that he didn't even know was on the roster, first of all, and then said that they really competed hard against Duquesne yesterday in a 10-point loss against Duquesne. So you can't say anything about these next 2 games, basically the rest of November going into December, that's going to make fans feel any better. You have to use this time to prepare for December, and that starts with the rotation. What you're doing right now is not working. Try something else. Put different guys around Otega to get him clicking and humming. See what you have in Malachi as your starter. See what you have in Cam Williams as a small ball 4. Something, because this is not working.
Yeah, a lot of things have to change. Like you got to try some different stuff for sure, and that's why Mark Pope gets paid the dollars that he does, right? And I think that everyone should still. It's still early. Like I get it. Like I keep saying, the sample size is still relatively small. The sample size against the 2 elite programs is not something that
the last 3, including Tennessee.
That's something that I'm not willing just to shy away from. Like, it's very concerning, but like you said, nothing that happens the next 2 games is going to make you feel relatively better about where this is headed until you get against the Carolinas, the St. John's, the Gonzagas. Those teams, those are the ones you're wanting to see Kentucky play and perform well against. But there's an issue about that getting close to the midpoint of the first half, to where the last 2 games that it's just dropped off and teams have gone on runs and kind of buried Kentucky there. And then you see a spark, Kentucky trying to fight back, but they don't have the defensive discipline at times to kind of get all the way back. And those are the things that I'm seeing on tape. It's the stuff that I saw early in the season that come back to get you. And Otega has been kind of at the forefront of a lot of those issues when it comes to off the ball. Like, Kentucky is switching things, Jack, that just doesn't make sense to switch. Like, there was one play the other night, one possession where it was a simple back cut and you got 2 guys crisscrossed, and the next thing you know, Brandon Garrison has no idea where he is and does not even close out on a shooter onto a man. And I'm like, what just happened? But it was so much confusion because they switched something that got everybody off balance, and it was literally a back cut that they switched. And it's just crazy things that I feel like that there's no intention behind what they're doing with certain things. It's like they're just running around freely, and I don't see the structure on that end of the floor that I was hoping to see with added athleticism. This team should be better defensively than what we're seeing, and they're fine against competition that's not going to make the postseason. They're not good against teams that have other dudes, because they don't play discipline. They don't play, like right now, I'm not seeing inspired basketball. And that right there might be where Mark Pope is so defeated, is because they're not playing with that fire that last year's team brought it. Even when they got beat last year and they had the bad moments, I always thought they still played hard. There's times where I just don't know if this team's playing hard. You'll get it for spurts. Colin Chandler's been wonderful. Like, there are positives within this thing. Denzel Aberdeen has significantly improved his game from last season till now. But you've got guys that are not living up to what we expected. And you've got guys that you've got to bring along. Like, Otega Oweh's got to be better. So, I mean, it's a tough spot to be in. But I'm not ready to throw in the towel. That's not something that I'm ready to do. Like, this isn't a give up, Kentucky can't get it right mentality. There's reason to be concerned, but like, this is where you figure it out. and it's still November 20th. There's plenty of time to figure it out, but you got to start getting some stuff together. And this could be shortening this rotation at some point in the next few weeks. You've got to shorten it down. Give Yelovich a little bit more of a look, because even though he's not maybe grading out well among the best offensively, I don't really know if he's had a lengthy opportunity. And then two, I'm not getting caught up in the plus minus numbers, because there's so many different lineup combinations being thrown out that when Kentucky has these bad stretches of play, are you just unfortunate to be one of the 5 that's on the floor with that bad stretch?
Yeah. Need to knock out a couple of these before I continue to lose my mind. I will never lose my mind over LG&E and KU. They know that when the lights go out, it can feel like a full court press, but staying in the know is an easy win. Update your phone number in the LG&E and KU mobile app, or in my account. If the power goes out, you'll get play-by-play text from 454-358 with outage updates, safety information, and time estimates for power restoration. Can't text? No problem. We'll call the landline on your account with the same update, so you're never left in the dark, because in the dark, there's no defense like Kentucky basketball. But with LG&E and KU, you've always got a team working to get the lights back on, and you know the game plan. Update your number today at lge-ku.com/outages. I feel like I was gaslit today, leaving the Mark Pope press conference and talking about what was said at the Mark Pope press conference, and just the fan reaction to some of those things. And I just want to explain myself, and also kind of just make sure BBN knows the why behind a lot of my frustration with that. And it's just the stupid pregame experience and the handling of that, but also as that bleeds into the team chemistry talk, and if this team likes each other, and all of those things, and the kind of glaring issues that we see just watching with our own eyes. My issue with all of it was that it got personal with the players. It has nothing to do with my lack of faith in Mark Pope, or if it matters about whether there was a pregame experience, or what happened with any of that. My frustration, I was totally fine with it just being left as is to start with. But then you started seeing in these YouTube comments, on message boards, on Twitter, deeply personal things about these players that may be true, may not be true. We'll never know, because apparently it was just a total nothing burger anyway, and we're all just being dramatic about it, regardless. But you have to understand the pulse of this fan base. For somebody who has aced every single PR test from the minute he took the job at the opening press conference to everything that he said and did from that point forward, all of last year and all the way up essentially to the Louisville game, has been an ace, total perfection, has never made a misstep from a PR perspective. But then when you put that out there, total lack of awareness about how this fan base operates and how they let things marinate, and when it does, it opens the door to speculation and all of the other things, and totally ignoring and ignorant to those conversations and acting like they never happen. So when you kick the can down the road, say, I'll talk about the pregame experience later, you ask around the team. I wasted so much time talking to sources and people around the program, and anybody I could get on the phone and talk to in person, whatever. And they were like, I have no idea what he's talking about. And I was like, this is either the best kept secret, or this truly is a nothing burger. But he, for whatever reason, let it linger when he had the chance to clarify after that Eastern Illinois game and say, hey, I was being the dramatic one. It's a total nothing burger. I'm here to tell you, here's what it is. We flipped the switch a little bit too early. My guys got a little amped up, and hey, we should have been ramping up when we were kind of ramping down, and kind of settled in a little bit too early for that Louisville game. That's on me. The lack of preparation on my part. I'll be better. And nobody would have said another word. It would have been totally dead. We could have moved past that stupid game, and it would have been nothing. But he used that time to compare himself to Taylor Swift and say that he likes leaving breadcrumbs and leaving things up to the imagination, and wanted fans to talk and dream big about what it could possibly be. And it's like, I don't think you're aware of what's being said. I mean, you're having people say that your players are getting in fistfights in the locker room right now. Like, people are saying that things are very, very not good. And then it leads to, well, if this guy is a locker room cancer, then he needs to get kicked off. It turns into that deeper, more personal thing. And then after that, then it transitioned into the stuff that you guys have read and seen, and all the stuff that I could never confirm, and nobody was obviously willing to talk about it. But that's not fair to any of the players involved. We're not talking about the specific rumors, but how do you feel if you're Mo Diabate in that situation and you scroll through your phone and you see just absolute nonsense written about you, and knowing that your head coach had the chance to shut all that stuff down and refused to let it die? It's just, it puts the players in a really, really bad spot, and it reflected really, really poorly on himself, on the program, on the rest of the players. It sucked. I really, really hated how he handled that, in the response today to finally kind of just be like, I don't know why everybody made such a big deal about it. And then having the fan base be like, well, here goes KSR just wanting to drive clicks and cause unnecessary drama and attention. And I'm like, I've been wanting to move past this since last week, since Wednesday. Like, this could have been solved and nobody would even be saying a word. And it's just, the lack of feel with that situation kind of feels just like a lack of feel. Like, the PR side of things is just that things are not connecting with Mark Pope right now. It feels like everything he says is kind of sort of the wrong thing. And I don't know how that gets fixed outside of just hey, I've screwed up. I went through a bad little week, but I'm going to get back to the guy that you saw all of last year and all throughout the summer and going into the preseason. Just, hey, that Louisville loss broke me, but we're back on track. I think I need to hear that from Pope.
I didn't want one to become two and two to become three, if that makes sense, when it comes to losses, right? Like, I was hopeful that the Louisville game could have just been an individual moment in this season that didn't lead to a second one, but it feels like the energy and the vibe has been kind of fractured since then, right? And not just within the locker room, or not in the locker room. I'm not in that locker room. I can't speak on that. But just from what I'm seeing with the team, like the energy, the effort, just the mood, the vibes, it's everybody that's involved just seems a little bit off. The fans kind of are in this, like we said it last week, the honeymoon phase is over, and that's fair. Trying to show some grace toward Mark Pope, because I mean, he's not been in a market where the PR matters to the level that it matters now. And last year, it was a softball. It was a soft toss every single time, right? Like, even when you lost at Ole Miss, or even when you lost this one, you could always lean into year one and what you're building and what you're working towards, and what you're trying to do in recruiting and what you got coming down the pike and things like that. So showing a little bit of grace, because this has been his first negative PR moment, and I believe he will learn from it and be better from it. He cares deeply about being successful. He cares deeply about Kentucky and wanting to get this right. And I think that it shook him to his core a little bit that they haven't performed. Not just performed, they haven't competed. Outside of a late run against Louisville, they have not looked good in those two games at all. And the two games that mattered most. And I get it. I get the frustration, but I think that you got to be mindful of what you say, because this fan base, and any fan base, they're going to latch onto something, but even more when it's kind of just an open speculation of what actually happened, right? Because it's going to lead everybody to think that maybe this is what happened, or, okay, I heard this rumor, and then they grow legs. And the next thing you know, people are saying things that aren't true, that then have assistant coaches having to defend it, or defend this. And it just puts everybody in such an awkward spot. It kills the mood, but at the same time, I expect him to learn from it, be better for it. They just need something good to happen over the next few weeks to really get them going back in the right direction. And this team still has talented pieces, Jack. Like they still have talented pieces. It's about finding the recipe that fits best, though. And last year we talked a ton about the system, but they also had guys that could make perimeter shots. There's no Kobe Bray on this team. Colin Chandler is elite. Like I think that he's an elite shooter, but they don't have the spacing creators that they had a year ago. I think they've got better talent. I think they got better athleticism. I think they got better upside, but it's about finding the combinations of how that all works together. And I don't think it's to continue playing everybody on the roster. I truly don't. I don't think you're ever going to mix and match and figure it out until you really shrink this thing down. Now, with some guys out over the next little bit, like obviously whatever Mo's availability and things is, but it gives you an opportunity to throw guys in there. But after that, you either pass the test or you don't. And I think that this thing has to be a smaller number of guys getting bulk of minutes when they play North Carolina. If you play 8-9 that game and you feel good about it, roll with it and be confident in it, because that's where it starts. Is I think that Pope's, you get he's a laid back guy, right? You get a lot of this over there on the sidelines and things. And when you're winning, nobody says anything about it. But when it's going wrong, everybody's going to grab still photos, right? And say, I want to see more from my head coach. It wasn't a problem last year. It's only a problem now because they're not playing well. But people want to see some fight from the team. They want to see some fight from Pope, and better days are coming. I don't see it getting worse. Like, I'm optimistic that they will get some things figured out, but I think you start getting it figured out. Like, to me, less is more in this situation. And I think they got to pinpoint where they want to go at certain spots. Do you want more spacing? Do you want small ball situations? Do you want to see Mo at the 5 when he's ready? Do you want to see more Cam Williams at the 4? Do you want to see Yelovich play some run at the 5 just to get another threat out there that can at least knock down a shot for you? Does it give Oweh more space to get downhill? There's so many things that you have to work out, but I truly think that kind of shrinking this thing down over the next few weeks is where they got to go.
And I think if he's not reading the room very well right now, and if he can't read the room or find or have somebody in his circle that can read the room, it bleeds into some of these recruiting struggles that we're seeing right now, and the inability to close, and some of the just how the signing period went, and how we're getting to a point where they full steam ahead on a kid, they become the overwhelming favorite, and then we go, well, where's the commitment? And it just never happens, and then he commits elsewhere, whatever. We're starting to see some of that, where I think this staff, as good as they are, I do think it's a very, very good staff. I think that they lean too far into analytics and fail to see the feel at times. I think they struggle with kind of going with the flow on some things. I think they are so set in their ways of, well, this guy has to play X number of minutes because our data tells us that he has to play X number of minutes. I think they just obsess over those things a little and lean too far into them, and they don't just kind of take a step back and take the 30,000-foot view things, as Mark Pope says, and just kind of just see the grand picture of what we're working with. And like that's kind of been a vibe on the recruiting trail, and saying things and not listening to outside perspectives about what kids are prioritizing, or how they feel like they have one way and there's only one way to land a kid, and if it doesn't work that way, then he's probably not a culture fit. There's some maneuvering and being a little bit more savvy that just comes with experience at Kentucky that they're really, really struggling with. And I think they need help. I really do think I think they need a GM. I think, roster management. I think they got so caught up in some of the analytics and how they built this roster that they kind of lost sight of, hey, what really worked for us last year is the shooting and the spacing and the system. And they kind of overcompensated with the data to add physicality and athleticism, the things that we thought were good. in kind of mist of, well, where is the shooting coming from? So just they need help. They really need help.
It's a tough thing, right? When you're talking roster construction, because Mark Pope put together different rosters at his previous stops. But let's be honest, those programs don't have aspirations of winning a national championship. I mean, they do internally, but when it comes to a fan base, they don't. So Pope brings that style to Kentucky. He pieces that roster together with spacing. But all we heard last year was they weren't athletic enough. They didn't have those dudes that could kind of go get their own. It had to be system produced to be successful, which is fine. But you get that in your head. So maybe now you look at this thing a little differently and you're like, okay, I'm willing to give up 5% of a 3-point percentage to get more athletic or to get better defensive pieces or to get this guy that plays above the rim or is better in transition. So you give and you take a little bit here. So when it comes to roster construction, like it's hard to really judge this thing until you see it pieced together fully, and it will not be pieced together fully until you see Jaden Quaintons out there and Jalen Lowe. And hopefully we get that at some point to see it. But I mean, it's tough. Like I think it's tough when it comes to how you want to do this. And I think that he leaned into a direction he thought he needed to go, and there's still time to work it out and to figure it out. But you may have to sacrifice some stuff you've done in the past and change it up and be willing to adapt. I've seen that from Pope in in-game adjustments. Now it may be more to tailor how this team needs to play offensively. And when you're talking about some of the things that they're not doing offensively, I'm not seeing a lot of the same stuff I saw a year ago. But we also know Amari Williams was just super confident and comfortable in the middle third of the floor. And Kentucky hasn't looked as comfortable there. I think they do at times with Malachi because he rolls so hard and plays with a purpose. But when it comes to this roster construction, and now we're talking, 2026, they've not got to that point yet when it comes to feeling good about a recruiting class because they haven't added anybody. There's just a lot to focus on, a lot of moving pieces that I'm sure Pope's more attentive right now to fixing the current state of this thing, that you would have liked to have had someone signed to kind of lean around, right, to give you just a little bit of a breather. But right now it's kind of all piling on because you're trying to figure out your identity here, while also, I think, trying to figure out your identity of what it looks like in high school recruiting beyond what you just brought in. Tough spot, really, for November.
It is. It is very much a tough spot, but I think that is just the value of these next two games. And like, if you're looking for the bright side, is that there are so many pieces. Like this team does have so many pieces that the rotation that we're rolling with right now isn't working. But hey, there has to be a 7 or 8 man group of those 13 players that fit well together, that there's something to work with there. And that's what you have to use these next. It can't just be 2 minutes of throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what sticks. I mean, go a little longer with certain groups and see if one looks a little bit better than the other. See what's a disaster. Go crazy, go get funky, look ugly, knowing that you're checking a box off that, hey, this isn't going to be the one. See if you can find something. I do want to know what that small ball lineup looks like. Just figure out a way to get Otega ticking something. But that's why you play Loyola Maryland on a Friday in November. That's why you have your pre-Thanksgiving game and then have another 10-day break before things ramp back up in December. This time's super, super valuable. It doesn't come across that way because it's a no-name school and you should beat them by 10,000 points, but it's still very valuable time now more than ever, I think.
They naturally flowed better a year ago into their secondary actions offensively out of transition. Like playing through Amari, they knew what they wanted to do. If they wanted to go some pin downs and get to some of that zoom action, so many times last year we talked about how quick they were getting into actions with 24, 25 seconds on the shot clock. Now they're getting to spots, Jack, but they're not getting that initial movement that made them so difficult to guard a year ago, that and when you don't get that movement, it makes guys like Otega Owe, I think, at times look bad because he's settling for some shots that I don't think he should take. You got Mo Diabate settling for shots that he should not take. And that's where the identity issues come into play. And that's where Otega's got to be better, but I'm still wondering how much of last year's system produced his results. And when you look at what they're doing now, not just the system, but the guys that he played with that spaced the floor for him. And right now, Kentucky has some spacing issues that they've got to get resolved. So that's some stuff that I need to see answered. And that's where I think you're become more intentional about your lineups. Okay, so a lot of people probably think you need to play Malachi more minutes. I agree that he needs to get some more run. But where is the line that you draw to where those minutes become too much that fatigue then makes him look bad? So you've got to find that balance, right? Because I don't know if Malachi is going to play 27, 28 minutes. I don't know if that's what you're asking of him right now consistently. But I do think that there's more in the tank. And maybe you find those lineups and combinations of, okay, maybe with 12 in that 12 to 8 minute mark of the first half where things are going wrong, maybe you see what it looks like with Malachi and not VG. And you make that one tweak at that point in the game where the runs are going against you, maybe you can flip it, and that's the data that you lean into. Okay, why are we playing so poorly here? Is it this lineup, or am I mixing and matching way too much? So, I mean, there's some tough questions to answer. Good news is they play again tomorrow. I get it. If they win by 100, it's not going to make anybody feel any better. You're not going to start feeling any better until they start beating some teams of substance here. But you still got to build for what you're trying to get to. And I think right now you take this thing day by day. You try to get something to pick up the morale. But at the end of the day, I think Mark Pope's just got to figure this thing out and work with what he has until he gets the pieces that of his full roster. Still think this can be a very good team. And it's 2 games and still got, 85% of the season left to play. Do you got to be better? Absolutely. Does he got to handle press conferences better? Absolutely. Is there still time? And do I think they'll get it fixed? Yeah, I do. I think they will improve. But right now, panic meter's starting to go in the other direction towards negativity. Trying not to lean into that too much. But then again, it's hard because we know how important this thing is to Pope, how important it is to Kentucky. And I mean, heck, we picked 4 regular season losses and we're halfway there.
Hey, we got half of a, we got plenty of time to work. Like we've only taken 2 losses of our 4. So
they have good players that I don't think have figured out how to win together yet.
Yeah.
I'm not ready. I'm not even holding the towel to throw it in. I'm not. Like, it's not even, I don't even see it. Like, I'm looking around right here. I don't have a white towel at all. So I'm not ready to go that direction. It has to get better, and I want to give them time and see what it looks like. Things just got to get better. Let's just leave it at that.
We have Jamal Mashburn on TNT saying that we look like kittens instead of wildcats right now when he was talking about the panic meter. Only gave it a 3 out of 10 overall in the panic meter, which I think is an interesting number. That's probably where I feel in general just about this current season, while also acknowledging that, there are some foundational things to worry about that have to get fixed. But if you're down about Kentucky basketball right now, that's fine. But our friends at SeatGeek, you can go to the Rupp Arena, enjoy yourself for $28 right now. That's awesome. $28. That's some great value. A chance to say you were there right at the beginning of the craziest turnaround to get back on track. I mean, think about it. Auburn basketball had to take a plane down from the sky because they were fist fighting up in the tens of thousands of feet in the air. They had to ground a plane because of their off court situations. If they can do it at the beginning of the season, so can Kentucky. So let's just keep that in mind. That Auburn team ended up being the number 1 team in the country and just steamrolled everybody in college basketball. So hey, there's a lot of reasons to be excited. And if you do want to be a part of this journey, $29 to get in there with our friends at SeatGeek. Come on, man. I mean, that's just some good old value there with our friends at SeatGeek. And elsewhere, I mean, the $19 to get into that Kentucky women's basketball game at Louisville on Saturday, that's going to be a big time matchup. Kenny Brooks has that program absolutely rolling. And hey, I actually just used our friends at SeatGeek because I'm going to the Patriots-Bengals game. I'm going to go get to see Drake May play probably against Joe Burrow. Apparently, he's going to play on Sunday too. So I actually used SeatGeek while the tickets were as cheap as possible, because once they announce Joe Burrow is playing, they're going to just skyrocket again. So I was making sure I was not going to miss that. But I used our friends at SeatGeek today. So a lot to be excited about, no matter what the mood is, no matter what the vibe is. Huge shout out to our friends at SeatGeek with 35 million downloads. SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. There are more than 70,000 events listed on SeatGeek, including concerts, sports, festivals, and more. Wildcat basketball is here. NFL, so many other things. So make sure you use our friends at SeatGeek. I have a code for you guys. You can use code KSR10 for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets with promo code KSR10. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. That's code KSR10 for 10% off tickets on SeatGeek. Appreciate that. Jake Brandon, I like this. Appreciate the super chat, man. Thank you very much, Jake. Pope detaching himself from the 25-minute per game ceiling for his players will likely solve his recruiting woes, and all other issues will improve. I think there is something to be said about this, yes, because I do think that is a talking point that comes up with recruits. I know it is a talking point that comes up with recruits and something that needs to be monitored and kept an eye on. But how reasonable is that ask, do you think, Shawn?
I mean, if you're going to shorten the rotation to the level that I'm talking about, then some guys are going to have to go, north of that, right? And I mean, I think you're experimenting a lot the next couple of games, and you want to be as close to what you really want to do, and you want to develop an identity. And this is like when it comes to what Pope is doing right now and talking. Pope is explaining everything. And he's talking basketball terminology in interviews. It's about, okay, we spent too much time on our secondary offense, and we should have spent more time on Michigan State. Nobody needed to know that.
That was a wild
needed
quote.
to know that, because I get it. Because I just got done saying a moment ago that Kentucky flowed into their secondary offense better a year ago than what they have this year. So I'm sure when Pope turns on the tape, he's like, man, we're really coming up short here. I believe this fixes what we want to do. But yet, not prepping for some other things hurts. That's where Kentucky's having to spend so much time on some things that they probably didn't anticipate. That's hurting the pregame prep. Now, I never want to be the one that spends so much more time preparing for the other team than I do taking care of myself, where your issues are. But you got to find the line of what you think is really, truly what at the core of why you're playing so poorly. I think defensively is where Kentucky has to start getting better. But the minutes per game and all this stuff, like when you're talking about scaling down the rotation, some guys are going to have to go north of some minutes that maybe you had. I don't know what that's going to look like. A guy that we've not even mentioned his name at any point in the first 58 minutes of the show, like we've not even talked about Jasper Johnson and things. And is that something that Mark Pope has to lean into over the coming weeks, is let him play through some mistakes and kind of tap into that potential and what he could become in the back half of the schedule? There's some interesting things that Pope's got to do, but right now, I think it's more of an identity thing with Kentucky. I don't think anyone feels comfortable with who they are and how they're playing and what they're doing. And until you kind of carve out the individual identities, I don't think you get the collective identity of what this team can do on either end of the floor. And guys have to buy into their roles, and it's hard to buy into your roles when you're having to play so many guys. This isn't a 5-in, 5-out platoon type roster. It's not. I don't think 10 guys deserve to play.
My audio went out of my headphones real quick. You just say something. I want to jump out and jump back in on this. Can you hear me?
I got you.
Okay. I can't hear anything, so just yap about something, and I'll be right back.
Well, this is fun. So, um,
Well,
Jack,
Sean,
you wanna-
this guy paid for through somebody else. Somebody else paid for this one. And I know we can have Jack come in and answer this one also, but it's something I wondered too, Sean. Is the spreading of minutes around, how much of that do you think is affecting some of this?
I don't. From a coaching perspective, I think one of the things that gets just me. I'm talking with me. I've had teams where I've had guys that were 11, 12 guys that deserve to play. And it's great that you have so many guys, but at the same time, I felt so off balanced in my decision making and off balanced in what I want to do because I didn't know my personnel and the pieces that I was playing to a certain degree. So me as a coach, I find it easier to kind of key it in on 8 to 9 guys, Jack. And that's what we're talking about is the question that's up there. And Pope has missed on guy number 1 and guy number 2 in the portal often, right? Like at some positions. So, I mean, all that stuff's got to improve, but your on-court results is what kind of feeds into that and how you look on the big stages. And right now, Kentucky's 0 of 2 on big stages this year in college basketball. And those are the marquee games that everybody's watching, and you got to perform better in them. Kentucky won some of those games a year ago against Duke, against Gonzaga, against Tennessee, and although Florida. Like they're going to get their opportunities to shine. And 2 months from now, like these results won't matter if you find a way to beat some of these other teams on your schedule. But I'm still going to lean into that. I think Kentucky's issues come back to earth a little bit sooner when Pope kind of develops what he believes is kind of the nucleus of which direction this team should go with rotation wise. Because right now I see a team that's off balance in their approach on both ends of the floor. And I see a head coach that's also off-centered in what he wants to do and where he wants to go because I think he's playing too many guys.
This question from dealing with Dylan, I like Pope a lot regardless of these results. I believe he's our guy, but it ain't happening this season. Longtime UK fan in general, let him cook. But it ain't happening this season part, Sean. Is there any chance that Pope's response to these losses, and especially just how devastated he was after the Michigan State loss. And again, we've heard since he was at BYU, like he handles losses just horrifically. Like he's got to figure out how to kind of manage this a little bit better. He compared it to the 5 stages of grieving and those things. So we got to figure this out one way or the other. But is this in particular, is there anything to maybe like he doesn't think that there's a fix? Like, do you think that this is hey, without Jalen Lowe, our team is just, we don't have it. And I thought that we had it. And I'm going to have to face the backlash of the $22 million all season long that I have the most expensive team in college basketball and they just don't have it. Is there anything in you that you think that could be a possibility?
That they can't get it right.
Right.
That this team is just
that his reaction especially was the realization that this team just doesn't have the goods.
I truly think his reaction. Mark Pope took the result of the Louisville game harder than anyone I've ever seen, in my opinion. Like when it comes to one individual loss, I believe that he took that one to heart. That one hurt. And I don't know if some things, whatever happened prior to that game, whatever they're going with or whatever the issue was, I don't think that it got resolved clearly beyond Louisville. And I don't know what those practices have looked like, but I think Mark Pope put the weight of the world on his shoulders after they lost that game. On a national stage, it's early, you lose your rival. It's kind of that you're trying to establish not only your dominance in this state of what that rivalry looks like, because Kentucky has dominated that rivalry for a long, long time. But it's new now. It's Mark Pope, Pat Kelsey. It's Kentucky, Louisville. It's a different chapter of the rivalry. And you won last year, but this one was the one where Louisville kind of pushed all the chips in. It's like, okay, we're back. We're now one of those elite programs in college basketball again. And Louisville you're kind of having to live with it, right? Because they beat you on their home floor and they looked very well doing it, and they had a dude doing it. And I think that some of that has added some pressure. And I think Mark Pope put some pressure on himself following that loss, which has then led to a little bit of sensitivity and a little bit of sensitive responses that I hadn't seen from him. And that's not me crushing him. It's just, I think that there's a sensitive side to it, but I think it's all coming from a good place because I think he cares so deeply about it that he's wearing that loss. I think the team's still wearing that loss. And that was my fear, is I didn't want 1 to become 2 and then 2 becomes 3. And the worst thing that can happen now is becomes 3 and 4 over the next few weeks.
Yeah, because then we'll be wrong on our preseason prediction. Like, I mean, we just can't have that.
Yeah. And then you don't have any quad 1 wins. So to hell with it all, right? Like at that point. But I see a guy that is emotional right now. And he's going to get better. I'm sure of it. He is going to get better, and he's going to handle things better. But I see a guy that cares deeply, that is wearing it on his sleeve, that right now just needs to not say some of the things that he's saying. We don't need to know every little detail. I appreciate it to some degree because for a long time we got 3-minute post-game press conferences and out. And I also appreciate that he's the one that's coming out and talking. I appreciate that greatly as well. So I'll give him some positivity or positive responses when it comes to that. Mark Pope's going to be fine. I believe Kentucky's going to be fine. I'm not ready to throw this thing in. I think they can get a lot of things right. Still a lot of basketball to play, but they have to find an identity. And Mark Pope has to – and the identity changes every single year, Jack. It's not the same from year 1 to 2 and 2 to 3. Like, every team is different. And what he thought was going to be this team's identity might not be 50% of it. So you got to scrap it and figure it out. Whatever it is offensively, whatever you got to do defensively, but it's going to take a collective effort on the defensive end. You got to lean into everybody on this staff to figure out, because Kentucky has some bad habits that are hard to break when your guys are 21, 22 years old.
You know who doesn't have a bad habit? Our friends with Monticello Bank. Monticello Bank gives you the home court advantage with their HELOC special, and use the equity you built in your home to finance special home projects and improvements. Score big with a fantastic introductory rate and attractive closing costs with 21 locations in 15 counties across Kentucky. We're just around the corner, so hurry in and speak with one of our mortgage lenders about this limited time offer today. Find us on the web at mbcbank.com. Monticello Bank, where people matter. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Let's keep the positive going. I like the before we wrap this thing up, that we're ending on a positive note after it being just the worst start. Where does your optimism come from? Because we are 1 week closer to the return of Jaden Quaintance. I'm still hearing a December return at some point. I think these next couple of weeks are going to be crucial in terms of starting to ramp up the live play and get some contact going for him to see how his body responds to that. But up to this point, he has looked unbelievable, and there's just a lot of excitement internally about his imminent return. I think it's probably we're trending closer toward imminent, sooner rather than later at the worst. So we have that coming up. We got relatively good news today with Jalen Lowe. I did love just that update that they're going to try to give it a shot, take another stab at his return and see how his shoulder responds. Maybe after that point we have real conversations. If it happens to happen again, it'd be a disaster, and then we would probably just have to bite the bullet and have a season-ending injury and that season-ending surgery, and that would just stink. But sounds like the update today is that Kentucky may have both Jalen Lowe and Jaden Quaintance by mid-December or something like that. So where does your optimism come from about all these puzzle pieces coming together and potentially fitting?
Because at some point, I think that when push comes to shove, you got to lean into something. And you can't just keep doing what you're doing, because obviously it's not working. And I get it, right? Not having Jalen Lowe is kind of forced him to kind of operate without him, of course, but to also look at other pieces. But when you look at the minutes distribution, the thing that I keep coming back to is 10 people. I don't feel like 10 players deserve to play 10 plus minutes on any given night and in a competitive game against a Michigan State, North Carolina, Gonzaga, Duke, whoever the heck they're playing. I just don't think that you need to play, that the minute distribution needs to look that way. And I got people asking, I see in the comments saying, well, who are the 9? you got to factor Jalen Lowe and Jaden Quaintance into that 9, right? Like when that's the 9 that I'm talking about when it's fully healthy. Mo Diabate, Colin Chandler, Otega Oweh, Denzel Aberdeen are locks for me. Malachi Moreno at this point's a lock. So that right there gets you to 7. Jasper, I believe, is going to have a role and going to get those opportunities and looks. And then from there, I think it becomes, what do you want out of the stretch 4 or out of the 4 spot? Is it Yelovich or is it Cam Williams? Or is it kind of one or the other depending on the night and the matchup that you need? Like, that's kind of where I go. And I get it. I didn't say Brandon Garrison there. I just personally feel like Malachi Moreno has been better than BG, and I believe that Jaden Quaintance is going to play. So at some point, some things have to play out. Either BG's got to be better, and I'm not paying attention to second and offensive efficiency. I'm paying attention to the things that I've seen. There's some tough decisions that Mark Pope's got to make as this thing. Right now, they're not tough because BG's going to have to play, right? And this is his opportunity. He's got to make the most of it. I hope he plays well. I just know Mark Pope's got a lot of tough decisions to make in the coming weeks as guys get healthy and come back. But that's kind of where I would go with the 9.
Yeah, I think these next couple of weeks of games and practices has to be, all right, we're gonna go with 8. We're 9. I mean, if you really want to go there, like, we're gonna go with 9. We're gonna play the best 9, but it's gonna be a traditional rotation. It's not gonna be platoon style hockey subs, everybody playing 20 minutes on the dot and just playing the analytics game. Like, we got to have some feel. We got to have, trust your gut. Like, you utilize your gut and say, hey, Malachi is just outplaying BG right now. We got to roll with the better guy. Don't worry about how much you paid him. No, don't worry about what you promised him going into the offseason, because that's when you start getting into real, well, you promised me this. Why are you only giving me that? Well, like, we got to have some hard truth conversations and say, hey, you're not ready. We're going to hit pause on this. And if there's a problem with it, then maybe you're not cut out for being here in the first place. Like, I mean, this is Kentucky. Like, we got to be able to have some hard conversations, and Pope has to be willing to have them. So anything else Loyola, Maryland specific? I mean, again, there's just not a whole lot to be excited about that one. Is there anything that would make you feel better about the current state of things this time tomorrow night?
I mean, you want to see – I think you want to see guys play well. Obviously, you want to see the bounce back. You want to see the fire and the energy and the effort. That's kind of where it all starts for me. I got some people in the comments talking about Cam Williams not being a 4, but what I'm getting
He's played
at –
the 4.
But what I'm getting at is you just got to find where you can play, right? And if this thing settles in and it's Malachi and JQ playing the 5, that's who's going to eat the minutes there. You got so many wing players and perimeter guys that if Jalen Lowe's healthy with Lowe and Aberdeen and Chandler and Jasper and Mo Diabate and whatever they're wanting to do there, that you got to settle in and play somewhere, right? And if that role becomes stretch the floor and you want to go a little bit smaller and get some more shooting while also maybe getting a defensive piece out there, then you mix and match how you please. But that's the mixing and matching that I want to see Mark Pope do. Not as much about trying to get 50 different lineups in 5 games. I want to see, okay, what if we just tweak it and slide this guy here and put him alongside these 3 pieces? Maybe he's not a traditional 4, but what he gives us at that spot is just another floor spacer that then allows Otega Oweh to get downhill and make some plays. Like, that's the kind of playing chess and not checkers that I'm wanting to look and see.
Steven says, fear the tweak. Got to fear the tweak. Yeah, I think so too. Start Malachi tomorrow night. Just do it. Start Malachi. Start Yelovich at the 4. Mo Diabate is not going to play. Go lean into it. Let's just see what happens, and we'll go from there. But yeah, let's wrap this thing up. Let's get excited for tomorrow night, however that looks, and we'll just kind of go from there. It's just kind of the situation is what it is over the next couple of weeks. We just we got to lay in it. We got to just sit in it and feel uncomfortable for a little while, just knowing you failed both of your first 2 real tests, or only tests for that matter. We just got to go from there. So just whatever the demon is inside. Like, at first we were dealing with an Indianapolis demon and dealing with Lucas Oil Stadium and Bankers Life Fieldhouse and all that stuff. But now it feels like we got another big time ghost and ghoul inside Madison Square Garden. So whatever, however we have to exercise that demon next time around, or hope we never just go back to New York City, I'm totally cool with that. So, Shawn, let's go ahead and get out of here. Where can fans find your work?
It's underneath my name there. I think it's _ Coach S. Smith.
Sounds right. Make sure you go subscribe. You can find me on Twitter at Jack Pilgrim KSR. Make sure you go subscribe to KSR Plus. All the good intel, all the like in-depth recruiting stuff about like what's going wrong, what's going right, is there anything going right. We'll talk all of that on the board now that we are post early signing period, and we can kind of air some of that stuff out. And Jacob and I plan on doing that here shortly. So keep an eye out there. Make sure you go subscribe. Make sure you subscribe right here before you leave. Like this page, like this video right now. It helps us a ton. So make sure you like this, and appreciate everybody that followed along with us and staying up for this late edition of Sources Say. Thanks for venting with us and letting us get some stuff off our chest. It was a little chaotic, but hey, that's what Kentucky basketball looks like right now. So it's fitting. You're used to watching things like that. So for that, let's get out of here and see you next week sometime. We'll figure it out, but we'll see you then.